Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever episode of your weekly movie rewind. I'm your host, Garret, Neal. You're listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Thank you for joining me. I have the whole hour from 4 to 5. I asked for half an hour, so we'll see how much of that hour I use. I'm going to aim for 4:30. I think that would be good. But while you're here with me, we're going to go through last week's box office numbers over the weekend. Brief hit on some news. The Golden Globes, of course, were over the weekend. Black Panther's coming around the corner, some stuff there. And we're going to end with the releases for next week, what we know about them so far, some box office numbers for them, some projections. And then we're going to end with my top 5 favorite action movies starring people that are older than 50 years old. That, of course, is to honor one of the movies coming out this weekend, but we'll get there when we get there. First, just going to run through some of the headlines we got this week. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, dethroned Star Wars The Last Jedi. Star Wars had a 3-week run at number 1 in the box office. It was a good run for Star Wars, but it has finally fallen to Jumanji. Insidious was the only Insidious The Last Key, the 4th Insidious movie, if you've lost track, came in second with a big opening weekend for it, the bigger than the last one in the franchise. It was the only new movie this week, though we did see some sizable expansions. We'll get to that later. As I said, the Golden Globes came in. There was a lot of the talk coming out of the Golden Globes, not really related to the winners and losers, more just kind of the atmosphere surrounding that. And though, as I said, Insidious was the lone new movie last week, this week we got 3 new movies and 1 notable big expansion that we will get to. So without further ado, let's run down the box office. We're going to go through at least the top 5 and then kind of hit some other ones that I want to talk about. As I said, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, came in at first. It was second last week. It's been second for a few weeks now to Star Wars, but it made $37 million over the weekend, which is just a 25% drop from last weekend. So solid hold there. It's in 3,800 theaters right now. It's actually up 36 from the amount of theaters it was in last week, and that's going to bring its total domestic, this is all domestic by the way, via Box Office Mojo. That brings their total domestic gross up to $245,606,319 off a budget of $90 million, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. Of course, probably 89 of that was for The Rock, and everyone else just kind of haggled for the chump change there at the end. But when you're talking about the star power that's in that movie, and a lot of it was shot on location in Hawaii, the special effects were not the best, but they were solid. Getting that at $90 million is some solid budget work there. I think worldwide it broke $500 million this weekend. And so they've made, obviously in the $90 million you got to add on whatever the marketing budget might be, but still they're easily making a good profit. Sony is off that. They got to be happy with that one, despite the fact that they opened it just 1 week after Star Wars. So congratulations. I was a huge fan of Jumanji. Very, very funny. Granted, it has Jack Black in it. If you put Jack Black in it, okay, well, not a huge chance I'm gonna like it because he's been in some not the best movies. If you want to talk about Shallow Hal, that one was rough. Gosh, I can't even. Nacho Libre is not one of my favorites. I know that one holds a special place in some people's hearts, but that's never been one I've been a fan of. But I'm glad to see that at the top, especially when you think of like Justice League, which still made a decent chunk of money. But the budget was so big. That one, well, I guess it's made $227 million domestically. Justice League has, so it's already been outdone by Jumanji. But also, like, the budget for that was just so huge. It needed to be historically big to really do what Warner Brothers wanted it to do. You want to talk about another movie that was very, very well budgeted. Insidious: The Last Key. Of course, all these movies are made ridiculously cheap. I mean, this one was $10 million. The third one was $10 million. The second one was like $8.5 million, and it was $5 million. Was the second one, and the first one was even smaller than that. So I mean, they make their budget back just so quickly from these. I mean, that's one of the good things about horror movies is they tend to be pretty stable in the money they bring in, and very easy to make cheap. Very easy to make cheap. You want to talk about Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch Project, obviously the kingpin there of just like, $2 budget and bajillions of dollars coming in. Insidious brought in $581,355 in 3,116 theaters, and just kind of comparing that, that is a little bit more than the third one made. The second one came out in December of 2013. It was December 19th, so it was a few weeks earlier, the week before Christmas. But that one made, riding off the success of the first one, that made $40 million in its opening weekend. So The Last Key is certainly not the biggest opening weekend, but it's still impressive that it made more than the last one, even though it wasn't a few more theaters. I think the third one was in about 3,000, so this one had like 100 theaters on it. But even considering, it's just, again, like, the horror movies hold exceptionally well. And coming in at third then is Star Wars, dropping from 1, 2, 3 in its fourth week in theaters. It brought in $23,728,944, a 54.8% drop from last weekend. That is a sizable drop. Of course, you do have to bring into account that the last few weeks have been 3-day weekends, holiday weekends. There's been a lot of people out. They get that bonus day. So there is that. And of course, Jumanji had less of a drop than that, but it also did increase slightly in its theater count. But still a decent drop for Star Wars. It is slowing down as it goes on. It's tracking as far as what it's making weekend by weekend along closer to what Rogue One made at this point than to what The Force Awakens made. But when you talk about The Force Awakens, I mean, again, that was the first Star Wars movie we'd seen in 10 years at least, and so there was so much hype behind that. And again, that one's historically good, and The Last Jedi is still at like $1.2 billion right now, and that's perfectly fine if you're Disney, even though it might not be record setting like The Force Awakens was. Although I have to wonder if Disney, I mean, obviously they're not going to think about it that much, but maybe just pushing Episode 9 back a year. It would just be nice to have a break in between some of the Star Wars movies, because we're getting the Han Solo movie next year, which will probably be around December again, because that's when they always come out. And then Episode 9 the year after that. And you get 2 years in between each episode that's part of the trilogy, so there's that build up. But honestly, just give it a few more years, there'd be even more, and which might not be that good if we're talking about the fan feedback that they got from The Last Jedi. I mean, that was 2 years of hype build up between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi for all these fan theories to come out, and then a lot of the fans were not happy when they saw The Last Jedi. So maybe that's one reason why Disney wouldn't push it back. But personally, I think it's nice to give some of these movies a little air to breathe by themselves for a while, and then bring them back up after we've kind of let the old one sit for a little bit. Moving on to number 4, The Greatest Showman in its third week out. Stays at 4, was 4 last week. This is where there's a drop off. Star Wars 23 million. Now The Greatest Showman down to 13,770,951 dollars. Only minus 11% for The Greatest Showman on that drop. It is holding very well. It's dropped a little on the opening weekend, but it's hanging around there. It's not making, it's not going gangbusters out there, but the fact that it is holding so well, I'm very happy about that one. The critics did not like. I enjoyed it very much. It's a very just fun movie, very, very over the top, but the songs are very energetic, and apparently that's something audiences are responding to. I responded to it. It got maybe like a little bit of a Golden Globes bump. It didn't. It did win Best Original Song, which I don't know how much of a bump that would give things, but it got nominated for 3 Golden Globes, so maybe there was some buzz there. It's in 3,342 theaters, plus 26 from last week. That's going to bring its total up to about 77 million, and it's going to be interesting. It'll creep up around 100 million domestic. That would be nice if it got up there. I'm rooting for that movie. And actually, one more thing I wanted to touch on The Last Jedi before we completely move away from the box office. That one did open up in China this week. China's been a bit of a rough spot for this is like the one worldwide thing we're going to touch on that's not domestic. Just because, you know what, I didn't go out and find the worldwide box office because I'm a lazy human being, okay? I'm admitting it. It's out there. But regardless, Star Wars in China hasn't done super well in China. Force Awakens still did pretty darn well. Made 52 million in its debut weekend in China. Ended up making 125 million over the course of its run. Again, historic movie. One of the greatest earners of all time. So it's no surprise Last Jedi is not catching up to that, but Rogue One made 30 million in its opening weekend and finished at just below 70 million in its run, and now in The Last Jedi's opening weekend, it finished even below that at 28.7 million in its opening weekend in China. So, granted, China was never huge fans of Star Wars in the first place, but they're definitely showing that fatigue. And The Last Jedi is not getting that, necessarily getting that big word of mouth bonus from everybody. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, like it is at this point, tracking like Rogue One here, it seems like that one's going to do about the same. It'll probably finish a little bit below 70 million when it's all done. Rounding out the top 5 in the domestic weekend box office is going to be Pitch Perfect 3. Also in its third weekend, we're seeing most of the Christmas movies still hanging up there, or the holiday weekend movies. It brought in a little over 10 million, 10,298,345, a 40% drop, and it's in 3,458 theaters. Its total is up to 86 million. And, you're seeing that drop, and, it's still doing decently well, but, I think it's clear that the third one is the right time. It's making much, much less than the second one did. I didn't pull up those numbers, but it's clear that it's about time to retire that franchise. And in number 6, I said I was going to do top 5, but number 6, I just wanted to touch on Ferdinand, which made 7,700,000 about this weekend, which brings its total so far. This is in its 4th week. Remember, it came out the same weekend as Star Wars did and made like 10 million that weekend. And so, yeah, it's total domestic gross is at about $70.5 million. And its budget was $111 million. And, if you bring in worldwide, it's at least going to make up its production budget. We don't really know what the marketing budget was, but, dang, that is rough right there. Certainly struggling. John Cena's voice, apparently, is not enough to bring in the kids. I think The Greatest Showman's probably taking away a lot of those viewers. And Coco is still bringing them in. Coco is hanging around the top 10. It's finished at number 9 this week with about a little over 5 million. So Ferdinand's just kind of sitting there, and it's struggling. A few other quick box office notes. Both Molly's Game and The Darkest Hour saw big expansions this week. Molly's Game, it was in 1,600 theaters this week, up 1,337 from what it was last week. It grossed plus 198% from last week. It got in just below 7 million, and Darkest Hour had about 6 million. It was number 8 in the box office this weekend. Up 790 theaters from last weekend, and or the weekend before last weekend, and it's sitting at a theater count of 1,733. Interesting box office this week. Again, only the one new movie, so it's going to be interesting to see how that holds up. I think Jumanji's still probably going to hold on to the top spot. Well, actually, I don't know. I'll make those predictions when we get to the end. But moving on to the quick news, going to go through. First, I did mention Black Panther. Black Panther tickets went on sale yesterday, so if you're going to go see that, go buy tickets. If you know you're going to see it, just go buy tickets now. I did. I'm part of the herd. I'm part of the problem that makes those Marvel movies keep coming out year after year after year. But hey, I know I'm going to see it anyway, so I'm just like, I'm going to secure my opening night seats. They also released a final trailer that was like 15 minutes, I feel like, before I started I had to come on the show. So I haven't watched it yet. But if you want to see some more Black Panther stuff, go check it out. I will right after I'm done with this show. Golden Globes. There was a lot of buzz around this one. Seth Meyers was the host. The 75th Golden Globes. That's a nice round number. Of course, the Me Too movement was big around this one. Most of the women there were dressed in black to support it. A lot of the men were as well. Came up in some of the good handful of the speeches. But if I'm being honest, I did not watch the Golden Globes, so I cannot personally make too much comment on the presence of the movement there. But it was a big thing that was kind of over the award show and very, very present there. So that's interesting to see the stance that they took on that. Seth Meyers as the host, at least from what I've heard, didn't really try and touch on the topic too much. Did sneak in one Harvey. He didn't really sneak it in. People noticed, but one Harvey Weinstein joke that was not very well received, which was interesting. But I'm not going to get too much into that. This is a school station here, so can't touch that. But going through the winners, the big winner of the entire day was 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri, which I think brought home 3 or 4 awards. And not really surprising. I know that has a lot of buzz around it. I was not a fan personally. Of course, this one written and directed by Martin McDermott, who also did 7 Psychopaths and In Bruges, starring Martin McDonagh, starred Frances McDermott. There we go. Those M last names, killer. In the lead role, she had a daughter who was raped and killed in the town of Ebbing, Missouri, and so she bought 3 billboards. She put up signs to the police about why nothing had been done about it 6 weeks following the murder, and tells the relationship between her character and the town. And I was not a huge fan. I thought it was way too depressing, and that there were like no happy moments in this movie at all. And I'm like, you got to give me something so that when it does get sad, I can be like, oh wow, I used to be happy and now I'm sad, and now I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the sad, but I didn't feel the sad. I just felt frustrated because everything was bad. But granted, that's kind of what Martin does in his movies. I'm not a fan of any of his movies, so not a surprise there. But of course, the big one was the Best Motion Picture Drama. Three Billboards took home that one over Dunkirk, The Post, The Shape of Water, and Call Me By Your Name. Call Me By Your Name, I'm going to say it right now, that's what I think is going to win the Best Picture Oscar. So that's where my vote is. In the musical or comedy category, Lady Bird took home the winner over The Disaster Artist. Get Out, Greatest Showman. I enjoyed it. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like an awards movie to me, but hey, it made it. Good for it. And I, Tonya, and Three Billboards, Frances McDormand took home the Best Actress in a Drama over Jessica Chastain for Molly's Game. That got an expansion, so if you're interested in that, you can check it out now. Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water, Meryl Streep, and Michelle Williams. Gary Oldman, no surprise, took home Best Performance for a actor in a drama for The Darkest Hour. He's just going to rake in all the awards for that. It's like very Oscar baity, if you're asking me, but it is what it is. Mostly I just wanted to, this is like Golden Globes. It's like more than a day after, so it's like old news at this point. But I just wanted to kind of touch mostly just Billboards, that it won like 4 things, and I'm like, wasn't a huge fan. Lady Bird won a few as well. Saoirse Ronan won for her role in that as Best Actress in a musical or comedy. James Franco won for Best Actor in a musical or comedy. I'm not going to run through the list anymore. You can go and check it out if you want to, but just wanted to touch on that because it's news in the movie world. But I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, man, it's already almost 4:30 and I haven't even gotten to the new releases, which sometimes won't be a big deal because there's only going to be like one or none. And when there's none, I'm going to have to just like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make up random stuff. But we have 4 new, 3.5 new releases this week. And I'm excited to talk about most of them. And I will, but I need some water. My voice is sounding very, very dry right now. So we're going to take a quick break. Your ears can get a break from my voice if you're still listening out there. So stay with me. You'll be right back. You are listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your weekly movie rewind. Once again, I'm your host, Garret Neal, here on the first episode. I think it's going all right so far. It's going pretty smooth. I feel prepared. Of course, I'll probably learn to not talk quite so much about the box office in the future, but hey, what can I say? I love them movie numbers. You were listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection, and we're going to talk about some new releases coming out this weekend on the 12th or the 11th if you want to go to those Thursday preview showings. I said there was 3.5. That half is going to be The Post, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, telling the story of the Washington Post, my hometown newspaper. I think they gave it 4 stars. Who would have thought? Telling the story of the Washington Post, exposing the lies of the government lies over the Vietnam War. So that one's been out for a few weeks now, but this week it is opening up to wide release, expanding to 2,800 theaters this weekend. Sitting at an 86% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, with a 96% want-to-see score. Not a huge fan of Rotten Tomatoes, if I'm being honest. But there you go if you want to, if that is important to you. Now, I know also it does have a 6.8 on IMDb. Since it has been out, these numbers are like a little bit more, you can take them with a little bit more respect, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for, but people have seen it, but now it's just going to be a little bit easier to see. It has already made almost $4 million in its limited release state, and it actually had the top per screen this week, so it made the most per screen it was in, at 47 million, or 47,000, excuse me, per screen. It was on 36 screens this past weekend, and it was on 9 screens the week before that. So it's exploding onto the scene into 2,800 theaters this weekend. I'm definitely interested to check this one out. It's obviously got nominated for some Golden Globes, didn't win any. It's probably going to get nominated for some Oscars as well. Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. If not for the fact the movie's supposed to be pretty good, from the reviews I've seen. But also they're Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. And Steven Spielberg is Steven Spielberg, so they'll all probably get nominated just for that. The next one is going to be Paddington 2. I never saw the first one, but I've definitely heard some great things. One of my friends has 4 little sisters, and so he got dragged to this one, but he came out and he said, hey, it was actually pretty enjoyable. More than just like a kid's movie, there was a little bit more to it than that. So I might want to check this one out. But this one is actually might be better than the first one if we're going by the ratings. It actually has been opened in Europe a few weeks ago, depending on where you are. In the UK, its opening weekend was about 11 million. Has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not certified fresh yet, though. I don't know how they decide when it becomes certified, but it's not certified. But it is, with 82 reviews, sitting at a solid 100%, and has an 8.1 on IMDb and an 88 on Metacritic. And the first one only had a 77. So granted, we're going to see a lot more reviews come in when it opens this weekend in the U.S., but that's looking pretty solid. The first one opened to about 19 million, came out around the same time of the year. It's going to open in 3,600 theaters. Probably not going to see this one opening weekend just because I haven't seen the first one, but if I ever do get around to seeing the first one, I will see this one. If you don't know, the first one was about the story of a bear who got lost in Paddington Station and was found by the Brown family, and they took him in, and so he's living in London as a nice little bear. And it's a live action movie. Obviously, the bear who talks is CGI. And in the second one, he saved up a lot of money to buy a gift for his lovely Aunt Brown, and then someone stole it. They got to get it back. Don't steal Paddington's present. He's gonna get you for it. He's a bear. He'll rip you to shreds. Probably not gonna happen though, because it's a kids movie. So I don't expect anyone to get ripped to shreds, for better or for worse, depending on what you're looking for out of your Paddington film. Coming up, the third one is going to be Proud Mary, starring Taraji P. Henson as a hit woman who takes on a job and it goes awry, and she finds a little boy who she then tries to take care of and protect from some peeps who are out to get her. She goes gotta take him out. Looks like it could be a pretty solid action movie. I honestly didn't know this was coming out until I was looking stuff up for this show. I just watched the trailer right before the show, and it looks like a average action movie, but it's got Taraji P. Henson in it, so that could be cool. It'll be interesting. I'll probably check that one out at some point, maybe not opening weekend, because there's another action movie coming out that stars Liam Neeson, and I'm a big Liam Neeson fan. Liam Neeson still getting it done, still kicking booty at the ripe old age of 65. The Commuter, coming out this weekend. He's on a train this time, not a plane or a boat, or no one, at least as far as I'm aware of, no one in his family has been stolen in this movie. But he's on a train, going to work, as one does, and some rando is on the train and is like, hey man, like, you're going to find this person and we can give you some money. And he's like, okay, sure. And then he's like, also, you got to kill this person. He's like, what? And then stuff starts happening. People start dying. It turns out this woman's like working for these people. And it gets crazy. But I'm interested because it's a Liam Neeson action movie. It's probably not going to be good. On 13 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, so not that many, it has 62%. I'm just going to be optimistic and say that's going to go up to probably like 95 when it comes out because it's going to be amazing. And it has a 57% on Metascore, 57 on Metacritic. I'm going to go see it. I'm really excited about this movie. But Liam Neeson being at 65 and still getting it done in these action movies, maybe think about what are some other great action movies that have come out with front stars that are above 50. I had to bring it to 50. I wanted to do like 60. I couldn't do 65 because there's just like I don't even, like, the only options would have been like Red 2 and Red and the 3 Expendables movies, which, like, I mean, that's a lame list if I'm being honest. So I had to bring it down to 50 to like actually, mostly like some of it was just me being like, I started researching too late and I couldn't find anything. But like, it's hard. Like, you can't just Google search action movies with stars over 60. It doesn't come up. So I lowered it down to 50, which is kind of cheating. But number 5, Escape Plan, which came out in 2013, starring my boys Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger was like some hard. Also, Sam Neal's in it. Can't forget about Sam Neill. I'm pretty sure this is like the only movie I've seen him in besides Jurassic Park 1 and 3. So maybe I'm just uneducated in Sam Neill. But he was in that really bad science movie with science fiction movie with Lawrence Fishburne too. I don't remember what that was called, but he was in that as well. But yeah, like Sylvester Stallone was like one of those guys that people bring in to like break them out of prisons to break out of a prison to test its security. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is just like this hardcore prison dude. I don't remember what he did. Doesn't even matter because he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so like he sends him to like this max ultra lux security prison so Sylvester Stallone could break out. But it turns out it was a setup, and they really just want him to stay in jail. And it's all about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone working together to break out of prison. And they were like 85 when they, not really, they were like, they were definitely in their 60s when that movie came out. I know that for sure. I mean, Sly is like 72 now. I don't remember what Arnold Schwarzenegger is. But it sounds like a super lame movie, but it had all of the magic of all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's 80s action movies in it, which I'm a fan of. It was just like, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. Number 4, Live Free or Die Hard. Bruce Willis was 53 when this came out in 2007. If they'd ended the Die Hard series with this one, I would have been pretty happy. Because this one was actually surprisingly good. It had been a while since Die Hard 3 came out. Not a while, but like a decent amount of years. This one had Justin Long in it. And I didn't expect this to do much. But it was actually a pretty entertaining film. The villain was like some like tech genius who was like hacking the city, and the action scenes were pretty good. There was some decent banter between Justin Long and Bruce Willis, and then they made the 5th Die Hard movie, and it sucked, and now the franchise is ruined forever. So there you go. You have to learn the hard way in Hollywood on when to end a franchise. You can't just say like, wow, Bruce Willis is like 55 now. Think we should move another one? No, I don't think we should. Okay, let's not. Nope. Got to put it out, and there's like a son. Number 3, Taken, starring the Liam Neeson. spawned a franchise that is great. All three of them are amazing films that are all exactly the same, and that's why they're great. Number 2, Edge of Tomorrow, later rebranded as Live, Die, Repeat. The Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt film. It was Groundhog Day, but science fiction. This one got all good reviews, and I feel like most of the people that saw it said they liked it, and I loved it. Great action, and they did a great job explaining the mechanic of why Tom Cruise was dying and then reliving the same day. But it didn't make a lot of money, which makes me sad. So if you haven't seen that one, I highly, highly recommend it. It is telling the story of Tom Cruise, who was like this big like showman exhibitor, gets people to helps recruit for the military, and then at some point he gets put actually in the military and help fight this fight that the humanity is fighting against aliens to stave off extinction. And then he finds out that he keeps dying and reliving the same day over again in this like huge fight against the aliens. It was creative. I loved it. Highly recommend. And if you have not seen that one, and number 1 to close out the list is going to be John Wick 2. That one came out early 2017. One of my favorite films of the year. I will geek out forever on just the action, the choreography in these films, and just the fact that you just get like a still camera that just like watches the action scene as Keanu Reeves just like beats the crap out of these people. But there's like some legit fights, and then like the entire universe that they built around the film, and like the Assassin's universe, and with all the different characters, like blows my mind. I think it's so interesting, and there's a dog in it, so it gets bonus points because dogs are great. Cats are okay too. I'm not like anti-cat, but like I prefer dogs if I'm being honest. So dogs are great. On that note, we made it almost to 4:45. That's like way longer than I thought this was going to be. Thank you very much to everyone who listened to this inaugural podcast. I think it went all right. Hopefully it'll get even smoother as we go along and I kind of find my role. But this was your weekly movie rewind. See you next week. I'm your host, Garret Neal, and you are listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.